People who are selling right now, right? This XRP goes into the hands of people who believe in that the value is higher, right, than the current price of the asset. So it's a rotation out of the weak hands to the strong hands. And once that is completed, right, then majority of the supply will be in those who believe in high prices, and then the price would follow exactly their beliefs, right?
Because they are not willing to sell. They are willing to hold for a long time. We see this with Evernorth, for example.
Enjoy the volatility, to be honest. Enjoy the because volatility is also good if you want volatility. And if you want higher prices in a shorter time frame, right? Then that only is possible with volatility. Enjoy while that lasts, also like the ups and downs as it trends up, because there might be a time in the future where it becomes so industrialized and institutionalized where the volatility becomes not that significant anymore.
Hey and welcome to our 10th episode of Krippenreiter TV, a weekly series that we both, Ved and I, started back in December to talk about the latest news about XRP and the ecosystem and Ripple. Now, fast forward, it's already February, and I simply wanted to say thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you too, Ved, for the continued support over the last months, helping me co-host the show, and thanks to all listeners that keep us motivated to keep going. I'm really glad we started the series, even though the price of XRP wasn't really supportive over the last year. With the Clarity Act moving forward, the US government shutdown averted, and the XRP ETF still pulling in millions, why is the whole crypto market and XRP fighting so much sell pressure, Ved? What's going on?
First of all, thanks very much for the kind words, and thanks also for everyone who has been listening and watching the videos. It's always like cool to see that people say, "Hey, I watched this. It was actually really cool. I like this piece."
Yeah.
Very, very excited, and yeah, it's already we had a couple of shows behind us. Yeah. Well, it's undeniable, the elephant in the room. The price has been tanking a little bit. And now we are at 176 here. I have to say, during this whole time where we corrected, like even from the $3 range till here, during this whole time, all the fundamentals have really been improving a ton in crypto. With the regulation, with the market structure bill, you see like institutions are entering the space, being very bullish on the technology. Tokenization is a huge topic. Plus, technical developments left and right. We talk about it all day. Left and right, there's a huge amount of advancements. So on all fronts, it's getting better. While also the market is signaling with gold and silver, you see the precious metal that with the people expecting about the confidence in the dollar and what's happening and globally, politically, we have seen like with Venezuela. So there's a lot of turmoil going on in the financial markets, but also political. But nonetheless, you see like the fundamentals improve, and the XRP Ledger is as a technology and infrastructure piece is doing great. It's just the price, right? That is right now not following the value, right?
True.
The price is not following the value right now, but I think the price will catch up to the value, and we will bounce back so hard. I'm so sure about that. It's just one of those days where you say, okay, I'm not looking at the charts personally, right? I'm more focused then on the technical side.
Yeah, the technicals and also the regulation. I think as Brett Gardinghouse said, the last couple of weeks have been an absolute firestorm of action to get the market structure bill passed. I don't think this sounds like someone who isn't convinced that the market structure bill will pass.
Yeah.
This is someone who is really convinced that this is the right way forward. This is what the ecosystem needs. And this is also what we will get at some point. And as you said, if the value is higher than the price, this is actually perfect for everyone who is bullish on the asset, because you get basically a discount for buying the asset for a cheaper price than what you expect it to be in the future.
And plus, to also think about, and I know a lot of people have seen the post from David on this, is truly by the way that people who are selling right now, right, that this XRP goes into the hands of people who believe in that the value is higher, right, than the current price of the asset. So It's a rotation out of the weak hands, as we say, to the strong hands. And once that is completed, right, then majority of the supply will be in those who believe in high prices, and then the price would follow exactly their beliefs, right?
Because they are not willing to sell. They are willing to hold for a long time. We see this with Evernorth, for example. We see players, not just retail, but institutionals as well, that are now willing to hold the asset for a very long time. ETFs, for example, holding assets for their customers, or Evernorth, or treasury strategies as well. Just in general, institutionals who like the asset and want to keep the asset for a long time.
Let me just say one thing to the price part. I know specifically, like for all of us, you're invested a lot in it, maybe time-wise, but also financially. And there's, of course, a lot of bonding to XRP in the asset. So when you see the price, you might get like it's not great to see, of course, right? It's never great to see. So I understand everybody who is like, it's not great. But be assured, just like in the past, these times come and better times are coming. It's just a part of the journey. It's really part of the journey.
And we can see this on the max if we go out. We can see that the prices change all the time. Like with XRP especially, very hard. So there's never a reason to believe that XRP will never go up again. As well as like with every asset, especially with XRP, maybe it's just very volatile. And if you are invested in crypto, you just need to get used to the fact that prices shift all the time, even though maybe not rationally speaking, they're shifting, but just because of macroeconomic reasons, for example.
And keep in mind, we are not isolated, right?
True.
If you look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, they are in the same boat, right? If you look at Bitcoin is also, down, and it is not at 125,000 or so where it was, 127. It also corrected, right? It's also down. So we are in this whole journey as an asset together, and so it's just reasonable to expect that if fundamentals improve in the whole industry, that the whole industry will move forward again. But we are not isolated, so it's the whole market.
We also have to keep in mind that out of all the assets that exist, I think personally that XRP still hold its price pretty high in comparison to others.
Yes.
There are assets, they are at an all-time low, and if you're invested in these assets and you are at an all-time low, you really have to think about if this asset will ever reach an all-time high again, even if in a bull run. But with XRP, even after the correction, because of the 5x that we once did, because of the Trump bull run that we had with XRP, we are still so up high. For everyone who invested with, like when the price was 50 cents, for example, or lower, you are still up like a dozen of X.
There's a huge amount of cushion that we have, basically. There's a huge amount of cushion. And plus, we're getting into this territory where a lot of people, like even those who would sell, right? They're not selling. It's like, no, I'm not going to sell at 175. So it becomes increasingly harder for, let's say, the sellers to drill further down, right? Like at $3, it's easier to tank the price because the liquidity is there. But now we get like really into the liquidity zones underneath where it becomes very thick, so to speak. So just getting through it will be like harder and harder. And that XRP is moving into the hands as we speak then to the people who believe in higher prices and higher value specifically. But yeah, I'm positive, overall. It's just a part of the journey, I know. So take it with a laugh, everybody. And yeah.
It will take time. I mean, it's really hard. I think it's really hard for those that are invested for more than years, for more than, like, let's say you are invested in the last year. If you invested in the last year, the chances are high that you are in minus right now. Yeah. But if you are taking a long-term view of, let's say, 3 to 4 years, we all know what happens in 3 to 4 years. And the momentum is for us. And the technological stack is advancing. And more liquidity is coming on chain. More liquidity is coming to XRP. So everything around the asset itself is advancing. It's getting better. But simply the price isn't. And since this is irrational, in my opinion, you shouldn't really be fearful or scared because of the price right now.
Absolutely, and we have also to mention that these things happened also in the past. Like I remember 2017, I really catch like the bull in 2017.
Me too.
And I had so my purchases were like all in this higher up range, but then of course when it went down, I kept like rebuying, and I had like a huge pause in between. But I was very grateful that I did during the times where it was like really rough, because it really paid out, like for me personally in that case. Because you have just more down days in crypto. You just have more down days than up days. It's just like typically. But what people, by the way, always compare crypto to traditional finance, let's say stock market, is they say with crypto it's elevator up and then stair steps down. So you have like this long, and with stock market, it's sort of stair steps up and then elevator down.
Right.
So it's like you have when you have a crash, it's really violent, but the up is slightly, and in crypto you have like these huge up runs, and then you have like,
which makes it way more difficult to invest in crypto, because you have to stomach way more downturn movements and volatility than in stock markets, where everything is just a little bit more slower. And in the stock market, it's also like everything is already in place. You have all these market makers, you have regulation already in place. So everything that makes the stock market the way it is right now is already in place. With crypto, everything is just new. We are now moving to a time frame where what we know from the stock market will be true in the crypto market as well, like big institutional market makers joining the ecosystem and so on. And this will also change the way the price will move in the future. So
enjoy the volatility, to be honest. Enjoy the volatility, because volatility is also good if you want volatility. True. And if you want higher prices in a shorter time frame, right? Then that only is possible with volatility. Right. So you sort of expect that. So enjoy while it lasts, also like the ups and downs as it trends up, because there might be a time in the future where, as you say, it becomes so industrialized and institutionalized, where volatility at some point maybe we reach a level of an XRP price where the volatility becomes not that significant anymore. And so that's good for everybody who invested before, but maybe later is going to be more difficult. We have to see.
True. And let's say you have invested and you are thinking that the value is higher than the price. What would you say is possible, let's say, golden ticket that would catapult maybe XRP to a higher price to move up, like to close the gap between price and value? For Cobb, for example, his golden ticket is the Clarity Act. I guess for Brett Garlinghouse, probably too. Who knows? Just my personal guess. For me personally, it's Ripple Payments and Ripple Prime, like the former Hidden Road, going on chain, using the DEX, post-trade settlement on the XRP Ledger, because we are talking trillions of dollars doing volumes on XRPL. I think this is really something that you could see as some kind of golden ticket. What is your golden ticket there?
I think really like the if I would really declare gold. By the way, it's a nice post and also like nice thought. Like what is the golden ticket, so to speak? I would say really it is that XRP is being used as a neutral commodity asset globally for countries and governments. And then they use the XRP Ledger essentially to settle, right? Like this is sort of the
end game.
David called it the dream case, or the best case that could ever happen to digital assets, that it's being used sort of as a reserve currency. And I think that's a very interesting thought. And I would say this is sort of, if you would have that, this is. I mean, it cannot get better than that.
Right. We're talking all the money,
essentially.
Basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's like really, really the money, and people seeing it as on par with gold and others, but not only like individuals, but on a government level, and currency level. Yeah.
Right. And to make this happen, you need products, you need services, you need institutions, retailers, you need all these people doing all the stuff on XRPL, and you also need products that institutions can use, for example. And one of this product is one that Ripple bought, and they are now rebranded. Like they bought a G Treasury, but now it's called Ripple Treasury. But
one thing before we continue that, maybe on the golden ticket one, the things that you mentioned and I mentioned is true, but also I believe it requires like sort of events, right? Some people call it like crisis or whatever. Like you need some change. You need something that trickles or triggers a change. And I think that's what people are looking forward to for something like this, like something
a catalyst, right? As
something
Tom
needs to
called
a
it.
catalyst. Yeah, something needs to happen, and whatever external thing that will impose like a precedent or something like this that say, hey, we're going to do this for this to establish really. I think that's what I would also look for.
So it's
so it's back to
so it's basically a combination. You need something more or less horrible to happen, which justifies the usage of the only solution that actually works, that would solve the problem, which is blockchain and the neutral settlement layer and the neutral asset. Maybe this is
just something. I don't know if necessarily has to be something really bad or so, but I guess
But usually,
it's typically historically always been the case that that something like this happens.
It's unusual that something big changes because of something positive. With systems as well, if the system is running, why would you update it? Why would you exchange something? Why would you try to get rid of something that worked for the past 5 years? The only reason to do is if it's really not working anymore and the solution is not a little bit better, but way better than the current solution, which blockchain is, but has not proven itself right now.
Yeah, so sometimes you need also really to drive the car into the ground, essentially, intentionally, to provoke such a change, right? Because if you keep like this or driving like this, nothing will happen, right? So imagine like this: you have a car and there is no brakes anymore, right? Like you cannot brake anymore, but you're still on the highway. So how are you going to get this car to stop, right? And with sort of the pedal stuck at where it's at, you actually need to crash the car. Literally, you need to crash the car because you have two options. Either the car is going to crash uncontrolled, where you just let it or are you going to opt in for a controlled crash, so to speak? Like where you try to get like into the side of the road or whatever, right? Like you just try to slam it somewhere so it at least stops, topples over, something like this. So would you rather be in control of the crash or just let it? I think a lot of people would rather have it maybe controlled, where you say, okay, this is a good opportunity to stop the car because the car has no brakes anymore, essentially.
Right. And everyone is aware of it. Like everyone is aware that some form of crash
everyone knows
has to
there are no brakes anymore.
Right, but they have to realize that they have to find a way to make it, to create a controlled landing, basically. And
no one ever is thinking that the US dollar debt or something will ever be repaid, right? Like this is a gone conclusion. We know this is not going to happen.
There are some conspiracy theories that are floating around about XRP being used to do this, but I'm on your side on this one.
Yeah,
I don't think because the debt is just too high. It's on a level too high that is just my mind cannot comprehend how this would ever be paid back.
We will print ourselves out of this pretty sure. So this is like. But this is like sort of the car has no brakes. It will crash, but would you rather be in control? in control of the crash? Like rather the car analogy, try to slam it into the side of the road or somewhere else, drive it somewhere in that it stops, instead of just letting it do its thing, and you might even get over a bridge or something like this because you didn't. Again, the analogy
over
is.
A bridge, See what you did there. Well, I mean, it's not. I can see it, and I think everyone sees it, and I think at some point we will see it in practice, and it will happen. And I hope we will come out as the successor and as the one winning. Basically, while the car crashes, I still don't want to die. So, hopefully, that's the goal. Hopefully, we find ways to jump out of the car before it crashes.
Yes, basically.
And solutions to this are products that help companies solve problems maybe before the car crashes. And one of this is
Ripple Treasury.
Yeah, Ripple Treasury can help any institution manage and optimize their yield. And this is also something I find really interesting, because this is something that is just not possible these days with traditional settlement layers, because now the way you can optimize your yield is goes down to the second. You can really optimize for every second. So you can because this is also why I don't think for the Clarity Act the yield on stablecoins matter too much, because you are not bound to holding stablecoins anymore as much as we used to back in the days with fiat. Right now with stablecoins, we have the chance to be invested in tokenized assets that earn us yield while we are invested for all the time we want to be invested. And the moment we need something else, like a stablecoin, we can switch in seconds. So we are not bound actually to really holding stablecoins anymore for days.
It really is like on-demand liquidity, right? Like as the name would really now fit here, is whenever you would need it, you can have it. And there's a lot of capital sitting idle, right? Because of this. You have a lot of capital who's sitting idle. It's locked in because of these opaque financial infrastructure. It's like, hey, this is like old stuff. It takes days. It takes like so much time to move funds that you rather not move funds, right? So when it takes so much time, you would just rather not move, because if you move, you might be catched in a moment where you need liquidity. So you rather not move. But with blockchain technology, primarily XRP Ledger, of course, here. Would help tremendously with that liquidity optimization because of the speed, because of the low cost predictability, and also the variety, as you say. Like you have a bunch of tokenized assets that you can choose from. You can have a basket essentially.
True. You can switch based on your risk, and you can even switch based on the time you plan on being invested. And if you don't want to be invested anymore, you can just use Ripple Treasury, for example, as a big institution with billions of dollars to optimize really for every percentage of yield, which is like super powerful because it was impossible to do before.
Exactly. Think of not only like treasury management for companies, but think of things like, hey, I need to do payroll every month. So you need to put like money aside. Well, that money in those maybe 20 days, 30 days that you have can be in a yield bearing asset in the meantime until you need to do the payment and earn your yield, right? So you can really optimize for yield, make every single ounce essentially of capital that you have, liquidity, work for you.
Also very conservative from the risk perspective, because you could, for example, invest in treasuries, or you could invest in tokenized treasuries, or you invest in money market funds that are also tokenized. So assets that are already pretty risk-free in the traditional sense are being tokenized and can be used with Ripple Treasury, for example, to really help improve the yield possibilities as much as possible. And there are many other features. Like this one was a product that Ripple is selling to their customers. But there are also on-ledger features that are coming up. And the newest version that came out introduced single asset vault and the lending protocol. These two are very important and very new.
Highly anticipated.
Then we have the fixed batch inner 6 amendment, which is a bug fix, as far as I know. We have token escrow and permission domains now in the activation phase, which means in 2 weeks, these will be live, or even earlier, like 4 days for permission domains and 13 days for token escrow. We also see that permission DEX and batch are very close to 28. We need 27 plus 1 to start the activation phase. We are at 26 right now. I think this will also switch over to the activation phase really quickly, which begs the question, why is it going so fast right now? Like I remember in the past weeks, we talked about how everything is like halting a little bit and stalling because people are unsure. They want to see more testing. But now it feels like every feature amendment is just going into an activation phase, and we get so much new features coming up. How does this all fit together a bit?
To be honest, if I haven't done this for these amendments, but I think it's worth doing. But I remember we did it in the past, where we looked at all amendments, because there was always, like said, for the AMM, for example, or for other amendments, that they take so much longer than usual. And then I remember on Ledger or off Ledger, I did like a spreadsheet with all amendments and when they were activated and the time, like how long. And funny enough, the time was always in a range that was similar. So typically amendments always sort of went live, activated in a roughly same amount of time. I think I remember the time was like between 3 to 5 months.
Yes.
Like between 3 to 5 months, amendments were activated. There were no amendment with very little exceptions, like Exchange Bridge, for example, where there was not the case, where it was not activated within 3 to 5 months. Every highly anticipated amendment was activated between like 3 to 5 months on average. And I think that average is again striking here. If you look at 2.5 or 2.6, I think they came out like last year, November, December or so.
Permission domains.
Yeah. Permission domains.
329 days.
200?
329 days.
329 days.
So,
yeah, in that case, it's like 9 months. Yeah, those amendments took really so much long. They were like so overdue, in my opinion, to come.
Token escrow.
They were like so overdue.
Token escrow only 220 days.
220 days, okay. But these specifically, I would say these, the permission amendments, the permission domain, index, they were like so long, right? Like now we're like 9 months in, sort of. In July it came out, right? July 25, July. So like almost like 9 months in, like 8-9 months in, where they were like so overdue, even from the average, because you have the average and then you have these outliers, and they were like such outliers that eventually they needed to be activated. And once you get like 1-2 more votes in, then another comes in, and then you are already at 28, because we don't have that many actually needed anymore. Because previously you needed like maybe 32 or 31 votes, yes votes, but now we have one to validate is less in the DUNL, so you need also less votes.
So this can change, right? The DUNL, the validators inside the DUNL can change.
Exactly. The amount of those validators can change. We have now less than historically, and so we need also less yes votes. And XRPL comments did also a great job in making that post about, hey, we are going to vote this according to the testing. But let's be honest, like the whole testing thing it just doesn't work, because there's just no.
I think you cannot quantify it. You cannot say this is the amount of testing I want to see for me to be convinced. You could continue to test for, let's say, another 3 months, and you could still end up being unsure if it's enough testing for this amendment 100%. To go through. So you cannot say, let's say this is the deadline, and until then I'm convinced that the testing is enough. So.
Because a lot of people, developers, like OG developers, seasoned people in the community say, hey, we need better testing, we need more testing, and so on. And I was like totally on board with it. Of course we need more testing, you know, like this is, you can never deny that. But I was like but then I was giving like a sort of a second thought. I was like, okay, what does it mean, like quantifying it? Like when is it enough? And there is no answer, because it's subjective. For some people, some testing that we have already seen, let's say with Handy Andy, XRP comments at some sites for it, that is enough testing. Or I think Mark from Gen 3 Labs, he did for Batch, where they showed like, hey, where he walked people through Batch.
Right.
I think Anodos also did something, Anodos. Yep. Some people say, hey, this is enough testing. But other people might say, hey, this is absolutely not enough testing. I want to see like more of these. So it's highly subjective. It's highly subjective. Some people will be convinced that these amendments are safe. Some people will not be convinced that they are safe. And the tricky part here is you cannot find out when. True. That's the thing. You cannot. That's the thing.
Because we're talking about edge cases. You can never know if an edge case is still in existence somewhere if something happens. So until you know it, but then it's too late, because then you have the damage. So the only thing you can do, you can just throw audits and testing on the amendment, on the feature, and do as much as possible until
best faith.
And then, because there was this tweet that I posted about, at the end, all we do is fingers crossed. We cross fingers and hope that whatever we did, whatever we hope to do is enough for the amendment to not do any danger to the XRPL.
And that's a reasonable approach to say, hey, maybe we should, overthink how we introduce features to the XRP Ledger. True. That's why I'm personally like so in favor of smart contracts, right? Because I feel like that's a really good vector to introduce features safely on the XRP Ledger without compromising the core.
True.
But now we have also something like with the formal verification and specification, which also helps tremendously with amendments and protocol changes. So I think we're going into the right direction, but we just need to bridge this time that we have right now, where it's not optimal, unfortunately. Yeah,
it can be reformed for sure.
Yes.
Well, and we see Evernorth as well opting in with their intention to use the newest protocol that came up with the newest version, which is the lending protocol, XLS 66, but also the single asset vault. So these are, again, two different features, amendments that have their use. For example, single asset vault could be combined with permissioned domains, while lending protocol sits on top of single asset vault to use the single asset vault, the funds deposited in the single asset vault. And they're really looking forward to using the amendment. And this is their overview. Maybe that help us understand how is Evernorth going to use the XRPL and the lending protocol to make money.
Just first to say, I think both of us, right, like specifically also you and me too here, it's great to see someone with a lot of capital do something on the XRP Ledger and help bootstrapping it. You know, I know this is like really an sort of annoying topic for a lot of people, but it's important, and I feel like this could tremendously help the ecosystem. So I give a lot of good faith, confidence towards Evernorth and Ashish there to do exactly that. So with the lending protocol that is natively on the XRP Ledger, it allows basically for loan creation and that you can do lending and borrowing, something that is very needed for DeFi, right? Very needed for DeFi on other chains. You mentioned this very often. It is an integral part of DeFi. So having here in this graphic, which they beautifully said, like Evernorth being the lender, right? And then other apps on the XRP Ledger can tap into this and facilitate sort of the borrower sourcing for this would be so amazing. So essentially what will happen is they have a lot of XRP that they won't put to use.
A lot of XRP.
And there's a lot of people who want also liquidity, right? For this. And by the way, and this is what they want to do. They want us to lend out their XRP for yield, essentially. Very, very simple. Natively on the XRP Ledger. And now the interesting part for me actually is, what will be the interest rates? You know, like, would they be very competitive? Because because it's a new thing, you need to be very competitive. Because if they do it very competitive, like a very competitive rate, I can see a lot of people borrowing XRP here or funds. Because if you look, let's say you need $100,000, you ask your bank what are the sort of the interest rates for this. You look at other DeFi protocols. So you look all these options, like how much does it cost for you to borrow 100,000? And if Evernorth becomes a very cheap option just to get it started, right? Like you need to get people in. Then I can see a lot of people borrowing a shit ton actually here and do a bunch of DeFi stuff. Maybe they bridge it to other chains to do some stuff and go basically arbitrage the low interest rate. So I'm really interested. What are they going to choose? Are they going to make it very competitive? Because if yes, then like arbitragers, right? They will look at.
I assume it will be very competitive because of the fact that a lot is off chain. A lot.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, because on other protocols a lot is on chain, it's not as efficient as it could be, because you have to over collateralize, and this is something the institutionals just don't like. Because let's say you have a partnership with someone, with like one institute, like Evernorth, for example. There is no reason for them to not or to distrust Ripple, for example. They are always in partnership. They are always on a level where both sides trust each other. So there is not really a reason to do the over collateralization. Maybe there is a need for some kind of collateralization, just in case all shits the fan. But in general, you can be very efficient because a lot of what you need for the protocol to be on chain with this protocol can be done off chain, which helps these big players a lot. And we talked about this already in another episode where we said that for the lender, it's actually a little bit more risky than for Aave, for example, because you don't have the over collateralization. But for the borrower, it's actually way more efficient and way more secure because they can just borrow they don't have to lock up debt capital just to borrow money, which is just makes no sense for people startups, for example. If a startup wants to borrow $1 million and they have to lock up $2 million to borrow the $1 million, they will just never do it because it just makes no sense for them because they don't have the money. They need money. So that's why they are borrowing. Why would they ever provide liquidity to then borrow liquidity, right?
You really introduce this you really make this possible by introducing trust, essentially, right? Where you have maybe, as you say, like you have identities maybe involved, where you know, hey, who is the borrower? Maybe you have a credit score. You know the people. So it's not an anonymous account that is trying to borrow, because then, of course, people would just borrow and never pay back. They would just run away. But if you have identity tied to this, you cannot just run away. You need to repay the loan. There are contracts in place where you signed, hey, I will.
You could sue them if something goes.
Exactly, you could do that, and that makes it very efficient. It makes it very, very efficient, because if you make it in a decentralized way, like you see on other chains with over collateralization, you don't need identity, but you make it capital inefficient. Absolutely capital inefficient.
And I think you see this.
By the way, just one thing, because I was just reading like a lending app. I was just reading a lending app. I think the EZA folks, I feel like it has something to do with that. I have no evidence of this, but I feel like seeing this now and seeing what they were saying, hey, we are developing a lending app, I feel like there might be something.
They might be the first ones to provide a lending app for folks like Evernorth, for example.
Which, by the way, we need, because we need, when we have these features, we need people to build for it, because else it's just like, okay,
And we have to understand everything that we say right now it's all permissionless. Like anyone could build a lending app using the native primitives, and everyone can use the vaults and the lending protocol as well, because it's permissionless. It's only permissioned if combined with the permission domain feature. As we described last time with the house, we have this room where the single asset vault and all the money is sitting inside the room, and it's locked only with a permission domain. If it's not locked in the room, it's permissionless and open to anyone. Anyone can deposit, anyone can earn yield, which is like how it should be. It should be hybrid. It should be open and permissionless for anyone, but it should also be permissioned for those kind of folks that need it, like Evernorth, for example.
To be honest, I'm a huge fan, by the way, of this approach, because as it's permissionless, but you have all the incentives to sort of introduce identity component to it, to basically make your lending efficient, right? If I want to lend out money, I can do it without asking you for identity. I'm not forced to do off-chain, but what would happen is I take a lot of risk, right? By you would just not repay me else. But if I do the off-chain part, right, as well, I can have like a good assurance that you will repay me back. And I like this green market approach because everybody knows that I'm a huge fan of the Greg Kidd's approach with also the bank deposit tokens, which is a stable coin with an identity component. And this is sort of, I would say, the way to go to introduce sort of a stable coin into traditional finance and banks specifically. And the green market is where most of the liquidity will be. Like the gray market, yes, it will be interesting. People will use it, but we should aim for the green market, because that is still yet to come on chain. Very important.
And we are talking trillions in comparison to millions and billions that we see right now.
It's always funny, by the way, when people say, "Oh, look, let's compare the metrics, XRP Ledger with this and others," and there's like 100 million RWAs on this or something like that. This is so tiny in comparison to all. Like we are all in these. We scratch the surface of it, and we make comparisons out of it.
And
like,
we saw this with silver and gold, where we saw like the whole market cap of the whole of crypto got vaporized in a second, and then added again in another second, and then vaporized again in another second. It's insane. And then if you compare these market caps like silver, gold, and the stock market and crypto, and you put them side by side, you just see that the crypto market cap is basically non-existent in comparison to all the other markets that exist. And we're not even talking about derivative markets that are like in the quadrillions or something. Even
there's so much room to grow.
Even the small markets are still gigantic in comparison to the crypto markets, which is potential.
I feel so silly sometimes. I feel so silly sometimes to even like argue with these things, because there's so much room to grow. It's unbelievable. I think people cannot just really grasp like how big this technology and this industry will be. and we just compare, pocket change.
I mean, if you believe that blockchain is like the solution to the new financial system, every kind of money, any kind of financial product will be on chain. Every kind of money that we see on Earth right now will be tokenized, will be used on chain, will be utilized in some way. And these are numbers that are incomprehensible, basically. So which makes it sometimes
opportunity of a lifetime,
right? Which makes it silly sometimes, as you said, to talk about millions when you know that the potential are quadrillions, and it's not even like this is unrealistic. That's just the nature of money right now. The nature of money is just sitting in TradFi, and it will be on DeFi, and it will be decentralized, and it will be on blockchain. And if this is the case, if we think blockchain is a solution, then it doesn't really matter when you invest, or it doesn't really matter if the price is down right now. If your time horizon is, let's say, 10 years, and all the money will be on chain. Like you can see where the space is going and where prices could end up. Not saying it will end up, but like we are investing because of the potential, because we think the value is gigantic in comparison to the price right now. Otherwise, we wouldn't invest. And back to lending, when we look at lending from the perspective of institutionals now being able to lend out, you have to also compare the lending protocol with lending protocols that are on other blockchains, for example, Aave on Ethereum. And one key difference is the fixed rate RPR, which is just important because you have to calculate how much RPR are you getting in a certain amount of time. If you, let's say you deposit funds right now, and let's say the RPR is 4%, but in a second later, the moment you deposit it, and a second later, the RPR drops down to like 1% because there's no borrower anymore. Your whole calculation doesn't make sense anymore, because the reason why you deposited, why you provided liquidity to the lending protocol was to earn 4%. But now you're getting just 1%, and a second later you are getting 5%, which makes no sense from a calculation point of view. So this is more, let's say, institutionalized to use the fixed rate RPR. So if the broker that is creating the loans is making, let's say, you as a lender get 5%, and the broker is able to get 6%, he should be able to like claim the 1% that is above the 5%. This is the reason why he's the broker. But also, if the yield is lower than 4% for, let's say, a day or so, it's on 4%, but it was 5% fixed, then also the broker should be responsible for it, and he should cover the 1% difference. So you as a lender should always get the fixed rate that you expect to get from providing your liquidity. Also in comparison to AMM, for many people, because they talk to me about AMM and asking me how the AMM works, and if there's something maybe more easier to use, because then they always go the route of staking, and then I tell them, well, staking is not like the solution. It's easy, but it's not like the solution, because you end up with inflation-based yield that you earn, which is not something I really like. But lending behaves like staking in a way that you just set it and forget it. You throw the money into the vault, and then you get a fixed rate APR for, let's say, 4% or 5%, and then you are fine. You don't have to calculate any impermanent loss. You don't have to calculate any complicated math. It's just you deposit.
Correct.
You get you also know where the yield is coming from. It's coming from the borrower, so it's very easy to understand, and it's built for institutions really. And as we said, it's permissionless for anyone, so any retailer can use it. It's just not for the institutions, and it can be KYC gated, I think, which is very important, especially for Ripple. As we know, Ripple cannot use anything on the XRPL as long as there's some kind of potential that they could end up with money laundering or sanctions.
Correct. You need to be compliant.
Yeah, they have to be compliant 100%. This is the only way to do this, is to 100% gate the liquidity with permission domains in combination with the single asset vault. And maybe you want to say something to the call of action. I think this is also something very important, because Evernorth put this out.
Yeah, it was interesting because typically we haven't seen something like this before. But at the end, actually, of their blog post, Evernorth said, hey, call to action, and they invited all the developers and validators to join the exhaustive technical stress testing because they know about the testing thing that has been floating in the community, which, by the way, I like. It means like they are very aware of what's going on in the community and the dynamics. So Ashish is paying attention here.
Right.
It's good to know. And they basically say, hey, we need this. We want this to be live, but we want this also to be secure. So let's work together.
Right.
So let's work together, get this done testing. So we are not stuck like 5-6 months with who's going to do the testing, stuff like this. Let's just do it together and just get it done. And I'm actually very confident now in the lending protocol because of that they are also behind it. Maybe even that the EZA folks will, help also with. I love this. I think that's really great. There's the attackathon, attack hackathon, so to speak,
right.
Combination where you basically they did $200,000 bounty for just poking holes into the lending protocol. If you poke holes, you get just money. If you find something, and that's great.
That's really great.
So that's exactly what I would love to see. Again, this is not quantifiable, as we said, but it's just all about the confidence. And does it give you confidence? And for me, yes. Like if I see like these players, initiatives like the Attackathon, this gives me a lot of confidence. This gives me like, yes, we do our best here.
And we will talk about this as well on the newest community event as well, the XRP Community Day, which happens on the 11th of February. It's actually 2 days. The 11th of February, if you are in the EMEA time zone, and the APAC Asia time zone is the 12th February. So you have 3 different sessions where people are talking about all the different things around XRP, XRPL, and Ripple. And from all the sessions, one session is especially important. The Americas session, because we are the moderators. Way.
Yes.
We are the moderators, and we are moderating Ayo, Jazzy, and Mayuka. Jazzy, from DeFi, institutional DeFi. She's working for
product.
She's product owner for DeFi on Ripple X. Ayo, we know him from the cryptographic point of view, and Mayuka, of course, programmability. So there's a lot we can talk about. The topic is XRP features, what's live and what's next. What are you looking forward to in this sense?
I mean, this is like such a powerhouse. You have Mayuka, who is dealing with both very interesting areas like interoperability and programmability, which is like arguably like the most vulnerable, but also the most potential feature potential use cases and areas for development. Then Ayu, of course, who is like the head of the whole engineering department, who has a good overview of all these things, coming with privacy and cryptography, and Jazzy, of course, she's coming from the product side. So what I would love to see here is a great storytelling about where we are coming from, but also where we are heading with DeFi on the XRP Ledger. Accompanied, of course, by the technical part, which is very well represented here, but also the product part. What kind of use cases specifically for XRP holders, for users? What can they see as well? How does it differentiate? What kind of target market are we really looking for here? Like institutions, are we fulfilling institutional needs on a technical and product level?
Will it bootstrap the XRPL, the liquidity?
Will it bootstrap? Exactly, and maybe also some recap. Like, are there some learnings that we from our approach? For example, with the AMM, right? We know for stablecoin pairs we would need to improve a little bit. Maybe thoughts on that. How do these things, plumb together? And maybe we can get like a really good insight into the roadmap ahead from a product side, but also recap. I would love to hear, of course.
An update on the roadmap would be amazing, because there are a few things we already know is happening, like the lending protocol. We already know this is like the next big core pillar. We have AMM, and then we have lending. Like these are the 2 core pillars that you need in DeFi. But what's next? How do we improve? Can we add smart features, maybe smart extensions? Can we add programmability in a way that enhances, or can we maybe enhance the AMM as well? As we said, invariance. We need maybe more invariance to help the stablecoin pairs. concentrated liquidity market making is something I'm looking forward to because it will 100x the efficiency and it would really, really help.
Or even just look at, the secret sauce that we have, like, with the arbitrager.
Right.
And we know from arbitragers what they really want. For example, that the bid is not active forever when you get the bid, right? Like it's only 24 hours, I believe. And then the minimum bid is also too high. So there's a lot of things that we could improve, maybe smaller gaps and pieces that make a huge difference, like low-hanging fruit.
Right.
I think we should also look at, but I would definitely love to get like a good overview of where we are currently with DeFi on the XRP Ledger, looking ahead, and specifically, not only we have technical side is very well represented with IO and Mayuka, but specifically from Jazzy, I want to see like from a product side, what is sort of the development here, maybe with partners and projects like. I would love to see, because a lot of people always love to hear, okay, but who's going to use it? Are there maybe some partners already in place, some projects, maybe some institutions, financial institutions who are looking, people love to hear this because it makes it like visual.
Right. You said this last time, you have to, like the easy part is actually the engineering, which is ironic because it's not easy, but like in the sense when you compared to actually bootstrapping and using the feature, like aligning it to a product that institutions need, as it seems, it's very hard, which makes it even more interesting to hear from Jazzy what a potential product could be for institutions to really leverage these new features and protocols that are upcoming.
But the whole sessions for Americas is very amazing. Like, is this Americas
this is
or EMEA?
Americas.
Yeah, Americas. Right. Yeah. It's like really great. You see also the EMEA one with Brad, of course, starting. And then Marcus.
Surprise guest? Do you know the surprise guest, by the way?
I don't know actually what the surprise guest is.
We would see.
But I was like speculating. Like, what is this here? Tokenized finance and XRP announcement. I think probably tokenized finance, that token issuer will probably come, right? So they're probably going to make an announcement for a tokenized asset, and that issuer will probably be then on stage.
Nice.
That's so straightforward, right?
Which makes sense. I mean, maybe BlackRock with Securitize. I don't know. No, I'm just joking. Who knows?
This is very interesting. This one here, funding the XRP ecosystem. I think a lot of a lot of projects will be interested to hear from this one, where they say, what is it here? How can projects be funded today, or opportunities? That would be interesting.
Right. Then
this one is interesting.
The innovation spotlight. Yeah, it even has Fig, Robert, and Hugo. So you have like this powerhouse of people that really know about
cross-chain powerhouse.
Right.
Cross-chain power. Fig with Squid Rider.
Oh, Death Ranger is moderating with Sophie. Perfect.
Shout out to Death Ranger.
Shout out.
Yeah, great. That
awesome.
And Sophie.
So cool.
Sophie, yeah.
This will be like really, really interesting because these are the people
100%.
that really know how to make yield with XRP on a cross-chain basis. So they will probably talk about smart accounts, I would say. Smart accounts, for people that don't know, you will leverage remotely an account on Flare by using a wallet that you already know on XRPL. And you will hold virtual assets, like issued assets on other blockchains, but they are tracked within your XRPL wallet. And this will help you leverage XRP in a tokenized form on another network to make yield. So, for example, on another network, you could do lending, you could do AMM, trading, providing liquidity.
In the case Flare.
Right. Everything that's going on Flare, you could utilize with your XRP in a tokenized form and earn yield without actually caring too much about Flare. This is like the most important part is if you are not in favor, or if you don't really care about Flare, the token, you don't actually have to care too much about it because the smart account will do the conversion for you. Whenever you need Flares for gas, for example, the smart account will do the heavy lifting of doing the conversion to make the usage seamless, which I think is powerful.
I'm curious about the fees, by the way.
Well, the fees on Flare are pretty low, so I don't think it's too high. The fees on the EVM sidechain are very high, so maybe there's...
Because I would think, because you compound, like I guess you have then the in-app fees, then you have the fees maybe on the DeFi on Flare. Let's say you use Kinetic or whatever they have there. I'm curious to see like what is sort of the end, like, you know, when you just put all the fees together.
How much, if I invest one XRP, how much is left at the end when I'm finished depositing? Yeah. Because if you lose like 50% of your deposit, like you need a lot of time to actually get back what you lost just through fees, right? Which disincentivizes.
It will be minimal.
I hope it will be minimal, because like the fees are a real blocker for many people. For me as well.
I mean, we have seen this with the AVM sidechain, for example, with the also with the protocols when you try to bridge. It can make a huge difference, specifically with lower amounts.
Right.
You know,
like it's also important because for new protocols, you mostly want to test them first. So, like as I said, let's say you test them with 1 XRP. Like it doesn't make sense to test with 1 XRP if at the end of your journey you end up with like basically nothing anymore because everything got burned from the journey. So it doesn't help really to test something with low amounts to get the confidence to deposit more. So everything should be very fee minimal to make it attractive for people to actually use their XRP in tokenized form elsewhere.
So definitely make sure to go into that one and see what they have to say or to announce.
Right. And then the last one, as we all want to see David Schwartz moderated by Crypto this will be like
hey, let me say this, you know, I don't know, is Crypto like watching these? But if you are watching this right now, Ari, I'm really curious. Like, you need to have some banger questions, okay? You need to have some banger questions. Really put him on the spot, okay? He is now not anymore at Ripple. Like, he's not active CTO. He's CTO emeritus. But so now it's your chance, really, to get to the meat here. Yeah, do it. Give some really good questions, hard questions. Yeah.
Yeah, another unfortunate thing that happened that really struck me, I would say, was Darren. Yeah, rest in peace, my friend. Fame to one more.
Rest in peace, Darren.
He was like a legend, a real OG. Like he was so deep into all these conspiracy theories without actually doing the conspiracy theories, because he did the actual research to find points to back up the claims, to back up big changes, big institutional moves. He was very into privacy as well, and obviously he was a great dad and a great husband. And
yeah, I mean, Darren, I have to say, it was such a devastating news, of course, and because I know him like from the chats, specifically like in DMs, because he was like DMing me frequently back then, a lot more, but he was like always very curious about the UNL and what's going on and how the ledger and this and that. So always like very, very much engaged, and like he just wanted to always know like what's going on with these things, and always very, very friendly, always had like good things to say. It's a huge loss for the community. It's a huge loss for the community.
For all of crypto.
It's an absolute legend.
And especially for the XRP community. Like his dad, Darren Moore, also wrote a post underneath Moonchaser's post. And he said that, he died probably, we don't know. Like there's no real detail. And I really don't want to know the details, because the fact that it happened is like horrible enough. Yeah. But he had problems, health problems, and the people doing the surgeries, they really fucked up very often, like in the past as well, and this time as well, as it seems. So as he said, rest in peace. Yeah, rest in peace, Darren, really.
Yeah, that's his father, apparently, so it's also a huge loss, of course, for the family. So yeah, deepest condolences for the whole family. It's rough. It's very rough. Losing a loved one, and this one specifically also for the community, long-time member. One of the names that you always knew in the crypto in the XRP crypto scene from YouTube, when you mentioned like Brad Kimes or just Asset Investor, Crypto King Solomon, you always like Darren is one of them.
Right on the list. And it like for me it took a lot for me to like process this, because we are not used in the community to see these kinds of news, because I don't know, maybe we are living in a bubble in some sense, because we are always thinking like we can hold our XRP forever and we can just be in the community forever and everyone will just be friends forever and everything will be fine. And then this happens and you are just realizing in this moment that things can change from one day to another. And we saw this with Darren, as he was posting 2 days ago, still on the 27th of January. He still posted about privacy, about XX network. Like he was still participating to the last day to bring forth his thoughts and his view on privacy, especially. And this really made me think about holding XRP and holding crypto and investing, especially in a way that we have to ask ourselves, at which point do we say enough is enough, basically? Like, do we want to wait forever until Moon happens and XRP makes us millionaires or something? Or do we want to live at some point? Maybe sell something, go on a trip, go to a shiny, flashy restaurant with your wife, for example, or your kids, and just live life a little. And I was thinking that what are you taking away from this news?
I mean, as you were saying, this is a very real thing that strikes you, because it's like it's a human passing away, essentially. And we have had many others also in the community who passed away over time, and it's always like this news. It really strikes. Is that, you know, when you are in this journey, and specifically all this, like you need to make every day count. And if you hold XRP or any asset for that matter, family and so on, whenever you have like life-changing really money, I would say, where you really significantly can improve your situation or something like that, you should look to do that, right? Because you don't know whether that improvement you can actually going to be able to enjoy or not, right? Because you might something happen to you. So if you say, hey, I can improve my situation, my family right now, today, or tomorrow, or in 2 years, or in 5 years, when that happens, take it. I think that's actually very, very good, because you don't know, you know, like if you can do it, and you know, time is flying by. Really, time is really flying by, and health is not going to be on your side forever. Right. So you need really to enjoy it. And specifically, there's a lot of people who have family and kids and so on. That's a whole different ballpark. You know, it comes into place. But that's why I love to say that there is no the moon. Everybody has their own moon. And when you reach your own moon, then that's enough. You don't need to reach someone else's moon or some, you know, whatever. If you reach your own moon, that's totally fine. And
because the goal is actually to achieve something, right? To find a way to better your life, to enjoy it a little bit more carefree, maybe. Make a surprise, make a gift for your family, for example. Help them feel better as well with the money that you made. And don't wait forever. Don't wait for, like, no financial advice as always, but don't wait forever just for a certain price to hit, because you never know when it will happen. And let's say it happens in the next 20 years. Who knows what will happen in this time? Things can change so rapidly from one day to another. You get like hit by a car or something, whatever happens, and everything changes. And nothing is like it was in the past. So be careful.
Yeah, you definitely, like when you look at your situation, and you take like really a calm moment, no distraction to think about it, you know, right, like if it's time for you or not, to do something in a very calm situation, if it specifically makes sense for you. And, you know, again, if it really makes a huge difference to you, and you have, you know, a lot of gains or something like this, the thing is, you're not going to take the gains with you. That's the thing. You know, when you pass away, you're not going to take them with you in the afterlife or something like that. You have, they are here, and so yeah, make them count. And again, deepest condolences to the family, and to friends, to everyone who who really grew up, I guess, with his videos and things like that. I know a lot of people who really shaped their journey early on.
Yeah. I think we underestimate sometimes how much influence some people have over us. For us, maybe as well, like for you. You have so many followers, so many people looking up to you, looking up to what you say. And we sometimes really underestimate how much influence we have on these people and their journey as well. So I think it's important for us to always not only help people follow their journey and follow their goals, but also realize when your goal is already hit. Like when did you already achieve your goal? Maybe it's already time for you to enjoy life a little bit.
Correct.
But it's up to each and everyone. And even though it's devastating news, this is the end of the show. And that, as always, thank you very much for the interview, as always. And
thank you, Krippen.
I hope we will see each other again next week. And as always, take care and be safe out there. Ciao, ciao.
Have a great week, everybody.
Have a great week.